Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to a new replay analysis. Today I'm going to be analyzing our hero Zerg, spawning as the red Zerg pieces is going to be none other than Hawks. He's actually a subscriber on Twitch TV, many of you will know him as Devlin in the stream chat. He's been a subscriber for pretty much as long as the subscribe feature has been out, and I decided to analyze his replay this week. So if you want me to analyze your replay next week, make sure to hit that subscribe button. There will be a link in the description. But other than that, let's have a look at this game. Now Hawks is a silver level Zerg player, and his opponent is actually a platinum level Protoss. So it is important to note that, you know, these players are really not even in skill at all, because obviously platinum is 2 leagues above silver. With silver being the second league in the system and platinum being the 4th one, it is quite a big difference in skill level. Now Hawks, honestly, I was speeding through this replay. Let's actually speed it up a little bit. I was speeding through this replay and I was actually quite impressed by his game. He was actually doing very, very well. And there was really only a couple of things that he could have improved upon. So first of all, what we're gonna do, we're gonna speed through this game, check out exactly what happened, and then I will once again take a look at this game in slow motion and tell you what I probably would have changed in order to end up winning this game. So he's gonna go for a pretty quick natural into a Roach Warren, into a whole lot of drones, getting some gas is going early on, going into double upgrades, and he's gonna eventually transition into a third base. Now this is a pretty standard game. Usually for people like in maybe up to Gold League or so, where the build order isn't as solid, but that is honestly okay. I'm not going to hammer on that too much because I've done that already in so many earlier replay analyses. So I'm not gonna focus too much on the build order that Hawks is doing in this game, but we're gonna focus on one little thing, and that is this push right now that he's going for. So let's slow it down a little bit. This push ideally would have killed the Protoss player, right? However, Photon Overcharge is very strong, Void Rays generally don't die, and from there on out, we are just trying to get the third base. Well, we already have it up and mining, but the Protoss is actually a little bit ahead in the economy right now, and we end up with this situation where the Protoss just feels like they are completely unbeatable, right? Many of us have been in this situation before, so have I. I've also called Protoss practically unbeatable at some point, simply because of the fact when there are like 10 or so Void Rays out, as you can see right now, it becomes practically impossible to kill the Protoss player. And obviously we cannot really deal with that with this army composition that we got as a Zerg, so the Protoss player is just gonna sort of sit back on 3 bases all game long. Once he has a big army, the Protoss is gonna move out, and we as the Protoss player, or as the Zerg player, just sort of need to GG out. So I think this is a very, very common strategy that a lot of Zerg players will die to, where the Protoss just sits back, make a base, sits back, makes a lot of units, sits back, and then just moves out and wins, right? I think this is something that happens a lot. Now, the one thing that you need to do as a Zerg player is actually deal with this by slowly but surely chipping away at this Protoss army, or just straight up killing them with a sure amount of units that we created. Now, how do we do that? Usually what a Zerg player will do in these sort of situations, let's actually have a look. I think it's right around here or so. What we usually want to do as Zerg is actually deny the Protoss from ever maxing out. So we got this army right now. We got a couple of Hydras incoming as well, and we're gonna wait for that a little bit. Then we're gonna try and push the Protoss player and sort of try and win right now. The reason behind this, once more, is because if a Protoss player maxes out on these units called Void Rays, Zealots, Sentries, you know, High Templars, Colossus, all that, if you manage to actually max out as a Protoss player in these sort of situations, you just sort of win. So the Zerg player's goal is practically always to deny that from happening. And Hawks is doing that very, very well. So let's have a look at what he does again. He goes for this Roach Hydra push. Now, the one comment, or the one thing I'm going to touch upon in this game, is the actual timing push itself. Hawks is actually going for a good thing, like he's going for Roaches and Hydralisk, and Roaches and Hydralisk just straight up beat these units, right? If you get a sufficient amount of Roaches and a sufficient amount of Hydras, you will be able to take it down, and even at this timing as well, 12.5 minutes, you should be able to take out the Protoss at this point. However, there is one big golden rule, it is that this army is not big enough. This Zerg army right here is simply not big enough to deal with this. Now, how are we gonna go about actually making this army bigger and making sure that we can win at this point in time? Let's go back a little bit. The whole key, and I know that is something that people have been quoting me on in forever practically, is that you need to make as many drones as you possibly can without dying. Now, what do I mean with this? Well, Hox is gonna start up, and he's gonna get a pretty early gas geyser out. Like I said, I'm not gonna touch the build order so much. Pretty quick roachborn, and he's only made drones so far in the game. So far I would call the advantage for Hox, because he's been playing superior to his opponent, where he's making only drones. However, there is one golden mistake that's gonna happen in a little bit. Let's have a look. Still making only drones. Still making only drones. Getting a couple of spore crawlers up for safety. But here we go. We're starting to actually make a couple of units right now. Now, why are we creating those units? What have we scouted that decided that we needed these units? Usually, if we would be aware of this third base going up, when you think about it, are these couple of roaches really gonna help out against this third base? Honestly, no. So whenever you make units as a Zerg player, you always need to think what you're gonna do with them. Maybe Hox felt a little bit threatened and he felt the need to create a couple of units right now, or maybe he hit saturation on 2 bases and he decided to make a couple. But you always need to make, like, you know, a reason why you're not making drones and why you're making these units. You need to make as many drones as you possibly can without dying. And the without dying part is usually, you know, succeeded by actually scouting exactly what our opponent is doing. Now, from here on out, what's gonna happen is that Hox is gonna make a couple of units, then a couple of drones, then a couple of units, and then a couple of drones. And that is not what you want to be doing as a Zerg player. The reason for that, I can shortly touch on that as well. The reason why you don't want to make a little bit of units and then a little bit of drones is because Zerg is just not designed that way. As you can see, like, there's 12 roaches right now in the production tab and then a couple of drones again. The reason for that is because when you actually make drones as a Zerg player, they mine for about 1 mineral a second, right? If you actually have drones out 100 seconds earlier, let's say you have 5 drones out 100 seconds earlier, you will be able to basically mine 500 more minerals, between 400 and 500 more minerals. And that is simply by delaying the units that we make and first creating drones. So what I would advise Hox and Devlin to actually do is to make sure that he gets as many drones as he possibly can without dying. Get this saturation going, do some scouting and notice what your opponent is up to. Then after you hit max saturation, you start massive amounts of unit production. And that way you will be able to just straight up get a lot more income. And when you actually start doing this, you will start noticing, crap, I get so much more income than I'm used to dealing with. This third base is giving me so much more income early on. I'm probably going to start floating minerals and gas, and that is okay. You will be able to adjust eventually once you actually start, you know, like droning up aggressively and properly, and you will be able to beat your opponent. Once again, make as many drones as you possibly can without dying before you start making units. And when you make units, always have a plan in mind what you're going to do with them. There is absolutely no reason to go for a couple of units and then a couple of drones and then a couple of units and then a couple of drones, unless you have scouted exactly what your opponent is up to and you know for a fact you're going to need those units in the near future. I want to thank you guys all for watching. Have an amazing day. If you want me to analyze your game next, make sure to hit the subscribe button in the description below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Hello everyone, my name is Lowko, and welcome to a new game of StarCraft II Heart of the Swarm. Today